on News Talk 1079. I've learned my lesson. I do not turn up the slider so that you all can hear Neal Larson until the very last moment, because he's being juvenile Neal Larson on our Facebook Messenger call right now. How are you, Neal?
I have no idea what you're talking about, Julie. I've been nothing but a grown-up for the past 2 minutes.
For the past 2 seconds, maybe. How you doing, weary traveler?
Julie, I'm about 150-ish kilometers north of the American border with Canada, and I'm tired, and I continue on my journey to get home. Of course, day before, I don't even know what the days are. Sometime in the past 36 to 48 hours, I got kind of stranded in northern Yukon. Actually, it was, I don't know. I don't even remember what province it was in. But I got stranded, had to be rerouted. So that added another full day to my trip. Otherwise, I would be in studio with you this morning. So here I am, just about an hour and a half away from crossing back into the United States.
And you have all of your items in like order for the crossing because you're driving somebody else's car. So you've got all of that taken care of?
Yes, I've got all the paperwork. The only thing you really need is a letter from the owner of the car. It helps if it's notarized saying, this weird dude driving this car has my permission to take it across the border.
Is that exactly the verbiage on the letter that you're carrying with you?
It might be a little bit different than that, but that's basically the gist of it.
Before we went on air, you were telling me you just saw another grizzly bear. So give the listeners an update about that.
Okay, you know how when you're in Utah and you go to Arches, and Arches get so much attention that you like Canyonlands is like the redheaded stepchild next door, but it's still beautiful. Well, in southern Alberta, British Columbia, there is a national park here that's next to Banff, that's next to, let's see, what's the other one? Banff, not Glacier, Jasper and Banff. And then, of course, there's Glacier just kind of over the mountains there. It's called Kootenay National Park. And so I drove through that. Google had me drive through it. It is gorgeous. Not a lot of traffic, and I'm driving along. I see a black bear kind of hop along about a half a mile in front of me, so I slow down and take a little look at it. But then probably 5 or 10 miles later, I'm coming up, and on the right side of the road, I'm like, that looks like another bear. And indeed, it was a big old grizzly bear just munching on the grass, a little bit irritated that I stopped and rolled the window down to take a look at it. But yeah, this is the third grizzly bear I've seen on this trip, Julie. It's been amazing.
That's awesome for you because it's been a lot of driving, so there needs to be some sort of payoff. So seeing grizzlies, that's part of the payoff. All right, should we talk some news?
Yeah, lay it on me. I'm going to rely on you to tell me I've been paying some attention, not intense like normal. So tell me what's happening.
All right, let's get started with ABC News' Terry Moran. So you might remember Terry Moran. He was the one who was granted the interview with Trump, and Trump went right at him, kind of made him look a little foolish, told him that he was fake news, and Terry Moran just shook his head and was like, yes. And so I don't know what happened to Terry Moran over the weekend. I'm not sure what spurred this on, but he put out this now deleted tweet. So I'm going to read it to you. It says, the thing about Stephen Miller, okay, that's the chief of staff, deputy chief of staff for Donald Trump. So he says, the thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He's a world-class hater. You can see this just by looking at him because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. Then there's one final paragraph that has 2 mistakes in it. All the rest of that is really well written. It's correctly spaced, everything. Then this paragraph. Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred only a means to an end. So he missed a word there. And then it goes on to say, and that end is his own glorification. So he misspelled it. It should have said is his own glorification. That's his spiritual nourishment. All right. So that left me thinking, Neal, was he a little bit tipsy? Did he get lit in some way and then wrote this tweet? But there's only those two mistakes at the very end, and the rest of it is done correctly. So I don't know if we can blame that, but tell me what you think. Is this the way a down-the-middle national news personality journalist should be behaving?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer to that is absolutely not. But let's go back to our theory, Julie, about what's happened in journalism over the last, decade and a half or two, where you actually don't have as many journalists as you used to, not even close. You have political hacks who dress up in the costume of journalists, but inside they're hacks. Now, I would agree with you. I think Terry Moran is probably very literate, and if he's making spelling errors and grammatical errors like this, he probably had something to drink or whatever. And by the way, that altered his judgment in even putting the message out in the first place. So yeah, I think your theory is probably right. He probably had a really fun weekend in certain ways, but his political hack came out and he forgot that, I'm actually a highly paid journalist in costume, and I need to play the part. And he just forgot to play the part and let the real Terry Moran come out.
Yeah, which now gives, more credence, more cred to what Trump always says, which is in that interview I referenced, he calls ABC News fake news. In fact, he says, I think the exact wording was, you're one of the worst. And Trump would say that no matter who was interviewing him. But if you can't keep your thoughts together enough to continue cosplaying as a journalist, you got the finger pointed at you, and it's fairly pointed at you.
Well, and let's go back too. It wasn't that long ago, last year, that ABC News had to settle because you had another journalist in costume, George Stephanopoulos, who libelously said that Trump was found guilty of rape. And they had to pay out millions of dollars for that. So there obviously is a culture of seething anger and hatred at Donald Trump. I'm sure that it permeates a lot of different corners at ABC News, and this is one of them. And I'm sure this is a huge headache for ABC, because not only was George Stephanopoulos super expensive, now the Terry Moran episode this past weekend is super embarrassing for ABC News. And to me, I feel like it's time to do what CNN tried to do, which is clean house, find out who can actually be a fair and I wouldn't say unbiased, but at least a fair and accurate journalist, and who can't be, and replace those who can't, and kind of re-image and rebrand. They won't do that because I think the culture is probably too entrenched. But if I were, this is another big black eye for ABC News, and I think there was even another one that happened. It was probably the Terry Moran thing earlier, but it's embarrassing for them.
Yeah, so the fallout from all of this is he has been suspended. That's the wording they're used, pending an investigation. I read that as maybe he gets a 2-week paid vacation and then they bring him back on. I would doubt that there's going to be a whole lot happen to Terry Moran here, but maybe they will clean house like you're talking about. I don't know what kind of, it's much like the Democrat Party. Who do they go to? Who do they fill the spot for Terry Moran with? When you're trying to find these people who are willing to sell their soul and cosplay like this, your bench isn't very deep, just like the Democrats' bench isn't very deep.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, you're kind of caught because you need these household names that you've spent millions and millions of dollars cultivating so that they are familiar voices to the American people, but they are also your problem. They're your asset, but they're also your liability. So they are kind of caught.
Right. All right. So shall we shift gears to the Simone Biles, Riley Gaines argument?
Oh, yes, I have been paying attention to that. That's another hot mess on social media too.
Okay, here we go. So, to give people a little background about this, Barb Ehart and I last week, we talked about this Minnesota trans high school softball pitcher and how that was just one of many trans athlete situations that were going on around the nation over the last couple of months, because there's been a whole bunch in the track and field arena. Now we're talking girls softball. So it was the state finals, and on Thursday, this Minnesota trans high school softball pitcher pitched a no-hitter. It was a shutout, actually. So pitched a shutout, and they won the championship. Well, that prompted Riley Gaines to make a tweet about it, and then Simone Biles tweeted this: "You're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race." So she's referencing that race that Riley Gaines lost to Leah Thomas, the trans athlete. And then it just went from bad to worse. She wrote, "Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive, or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports," because that's Riley Gaines' job. Riley Gaines' job is to protect young women. It's not her job. She's lobbying for the NCAA to do just that. But Simone Biles is putting it at her feet. Then she went on to say, "Bully someone your own size, which would ironically be a male." Well, I need to remind everybody, Riley Gaines is like 5'5". And so she's not the height of a male. And she's just an athletic woman. She's just built with muscle. She doesn't look like a man at all. So talk about bullying. What is that statement by Simone Biles? Well, the internet lives forever. And back in 2017, Simone Biles made a tweet, and here's what it said. Good thing guys don't compete against girls, or he'd take all the gold medals." So she's referencing the World Artistic Gymnastic Championships in Canada. So clear back then in 2017, she didn't want guys competing against girls. But now that she's climbed the ladder and she's retiring from her sport, all of a sudden that's perfectly fine for men to be competing in the sport.
Yeah, and I look at this as you were laying all of that out. I thought about how the left has lost a lot on this one issue, and it's a zero-sum game. Conservatives are winning this. It's an 80-20 issue. We talked about this time. Let it go. I mean, it is an 81 time. Can't let it. I think it bugs them that issue that they go. And it's an issue that so many issues that conservatives have taken up. This one resonates across America. And they know that they have taken up this big hit because of it. And I just said their ego, there's something there, and I find in them that keeps them from admitting that they've been wrong on this issue now for several years. So I think it's just, I don't know what word to put to it, but I think it's just incredibly painful for especially liberals to think like Simone Biles. It's easy to put a virtue signal. For them, it's reflexive. They're like, well, I'm just going to stay liberals to say for this community or that community, and they don't actually stop and what this end up the issue of is this fair? It's really the right thing to do, and so I believe that Simone Biles completely snipped on this one. I believe she had I was completely stepped in this great style. Step in. Hey, are you there?
Yeah, I was gonna have you pause.
Are you there, Julie?
Yeah, I was gonna have you pause.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was going to have you pause for just a second and let your phone buffer for just a second because you're cutting in and out and in and out. So, but I could understand what you were saying. You were saying that this was an 80-20 issue and they're doubling down on this, and it's not a winning concept at all. And they keep doing this, right? You and I were talking on the phone yesterday planning what we were going to do for today's show, and I mentioned to you, I don't know what was going on with the Democrats over the weekend, but they chose 80-20 issues to reaffirm how they're a dying party. We've got the riots going on in LA. Okay, these are murderous and rapists that you're frustrated that the ICE raids were taking these people into custody. So they doubled down on that. That is not quite an 80-20 issue, more like a probably 65-35 issue. You've got the argument between Simone Biles and Riley Gaines. That's an 80-20 issue. You have Abrego Garcia. That was the man who was sent to an El Salvador prison. And we had Democrat politicians going down and having margaritas with him. And then all of a sudden, we're bringing him back to America because he has been charged with over 100 counts of human smuggling. He was the coyote. He was the guy who brought people from the border to other states. He'd put 8 to 10 people in a van and drive them. They'd have no luggage. They would have nothing. And there's now an indictment against him for this. So he's probably going to federal prison. And this is their hero. They keep doubling down on these things that aren't heroic, even though they think they are.
Well, they're not. And back, can you hear me okay now, Julie?
I can.
Okay. Back to Simone Biles for just a moment, because she had a stellar brand with the American people. America loves Simone Biles. Don't even go there. Why do these celebrities feel this need to get really political when their brand has had nothing to do with politics? Now, Riley Gaines is different. Her brand has always had something to do with politics, and that it's built on her being political. But when you have the Dixie Chicks, or you have someone like Simone Biles, why are you jeopardizing your brand by virtue signaling politically? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And that's your individual brand, but you're siding with a political party that has destroyed their brand by lying to the American public about Joe Biden, by not actually being a democracy and just anointing Kamala Harris in the candidacy. So you're pairing yourself with a group of people who have also destroyed their brand. So you're destroying your brand and they've destroyed their brand.
It's like they all said, let's all get on the Titanic.
Yeah. Oh, let's have a dumpster fire party together.
Yes, let's do it. Let's ruin our brand. Yeah, no, it's true.
All right. Before I let you go, Neal, let's remind everyone about the open house, the party we're going to have on Friday.
I am so excited about this, Julie. In fact, it was yesterday. Happy anniversary, 5 years that News Talk 107.9 launched on the airwaves in East Idaho. And we weren't going to do anything on a Sunday. That day didn't make a lot of sense. Plus, I wasn't even here. So we have chosen this Friday, 11 to 1, for an open house at our studios at Sandhill Media at 854 Lindsay Boulevard. So stop by. We'll have some refreshments there. You can eat a little bit. You can come back and greet us and talk to us. We'll give you a little studio tour. And if you're willing, we'd love to record your greetings as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. So come hang out with us on Friday, 11 to 1, right? That's what we've decided, 11 to 1?
Yep.
11 to 1. That will be a fun time. And Neal, be safe.
Yes, I will. I've got about a little under 9 hours of driving left from where I am right now. So that'll be interspersed with a nap here and there because I am sleep deprived. But I will be in studio tomorrow morning with you, Julie, and I look forward to being back.
We look forward to having you in America, not just Idaho Falls, in America. All right. We've got to take a quick commercial break. Let me know what you think about the topics that we're discussing today. You can send me a text on the Stones Automotive Group call and text line. That's 208-542-1079. And we need to take a quick bottom of the hour news break here on News Talk 1079.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's Brad from Now 105.1 and QP99. I'm in the studio here. I love our studios, by the way. Ranger Rick back there. There's Neil and Julie doing their thing. Hey, when you want to advertise on the radio, what do? You call the radio station, right? But what do you do when you want to advertise on Facebook and Instagram and Hulu and Disney Plus and Peacock and the other TV streaming services? You can kind of click around on them and make guesses or read books or take courses online on how to do that advertising. Or you could call us at the radio station. At Sandhill Media, we take care of your local radio and digital marketing. So reach out to us at sandhillmediagroup.com and we'll make sure that your message gets heard and seen wherever your customers are.
And we're back on the Neal Larson Show. I'm Julie Mason. Neal is on his way back from Canada. He should be getting close to the border right now, so he'll make it back to East Idaho by this evening. And we're wishing him safe travels. Real quick, I want to share a story with you about the Idaho State Police and their partnership with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, I thought this was relevant based upon the concepts of the riots that are currently happening in the LA area and other surrounding areas, that people are rioting because there were ICE raids that were deployed on both Friday and Saturday. And so the Idaho State Police earlier this previous week, so before those raids in LA happened, they came out and said that they were participating in the jail enforcement model, which allows ICE to delegate specific immigration officer functions to state and local enforcement officers. This was all brought to everyone by the governor's office, like it came out in a statement. So state officials said Idaho State Police will only be targeting and transporting people who have been convicted of a crime and are finishing their incarceration sentence. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at people who are currently in prison. They've been convicted of a crime. They're in the middle of finishing their sentence. They'll deport them if they do not have the correct paperwork, and ICE will be used, or local state police or Idaho State Police will be used in conjunction with ICE officers to enact those deportations. Now, the ACLU has obviously expressed concern about this, and they put out a statement that said, ICE and local law enforcement partnerships deteriorate trust, harm families, and could lead to constitutional violations. This new partnership will intimidate and cause real trauma to our immigrant community. Immigrants make our communities stronger, and they deserve to be treated with dignity. Nothing will ever change the fact that immigrants belong in Idaho. I would like to take, just that last sentence up with the ACLU. It reads, nothing will ever change the fact that immigrants belong in Idaho. Legal immigrants 100% belong in Idaho. We welcome them with open arms. Those who are being sent back, who are being deported, are convicted criminals. So we're just supposed to have open arms for convicted criminals? That is the part that is always being missed in this conversation between those who support criminals and those who support deportations. They always want to make sure that the illegal immigrant, the criminal, is protected. And that is not what Governor Brad Little was allowing the Idaho State Police to do when he put out this announcement on Thursday. This is going to be an ongoing issue. Clearly, the riots are not finished. There's going to be fallout. No matter what, if there's no more burning today, there's going to be fallout. So, I would imagine more protests will be in East Idaho as well. It is an 80-20 issue. So, I just don't understand how they keep doubling down on all of this. All right, we have an exciting hour coming up. We're going to have a lawmaker from East Idaho, heavy hour. And I think that Senator Kevin Cook just walked into the studio. So Senator Kevin Cook is joining us at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. We're going to talk education. He is the vice chair of the Education Committee in the Senate. So we'll chat about education and other. Well, good morning, East Idaho. Welcome to the second hour of the Neal Larson Show. It's 9:07. I am Julie Mason. There is no Neal Larson in studio today. He should be just about crossing the Canada-America border as we speak. So he should be back in East Idaho this evening. But I have a great guest helping me out in the 9 o'clock hour. I'm joined right now by Senator Kevin Cook. He's from District 32. Thanks for being here, Senator. How are you?
I am good. It's always good to be here.
I love having you. Is it getting easier? I know it makes you nervous to come into studio.
No, it's not getting any easier.
Well, we appreciate you jumping into the uncomfortable with us all. All right, let's talk about, well, first, you just finished a great vacation. Tell everyone where you've been with family.
We went down to St. George with the family, and there's about 60 of us, and it's in desert color place, and it's got like a 4-acre
south of
pool.
St. George.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a 4-acre lagoon, man-made swimming pool, and it was just wonderful. We didn't hit 100 degrees, so it was nice.
Good for you. Well, there was plenty of reasons to get in the water, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. It was nice.
All right, let's talk about the 2025 legislative session. What would you give it as a letter grade?
Oh, I would give it probably a B+, I think. I think there was a lot of good stuff that came out of it. There was lots of frustration. Also, at least for me, it was very frustrating. But there were some good things that came out of it, I think.
Good. I promised the listeners we would talk about education. You are the vice chair of the Education Committee.
Yes.
So this is your wheelhouse. You were part of an education bill to help private education, help parents want money to follow their student. That bill didn't get as much support as Wendy Horman's bill. You weren't a big fan of Wendy Horman's bill. Not that you disagreed with all of it, but there were portions of it that you disagreed with. Wendy Horman's tax credit bill was the eventual bill that got signed into law. Why don't you tell us what you didn't like and what you did like about Wendy Horman's legislation?
Well, I am all about school choice, and Senator Lent's bill was school choice. I think that the big thing that I just have a really hard problem with Senator or Representative Horman's bill was the idea of not having oversight of that money. As a JFAC person, Joint Finance Appropriations Committee that I serve on, I was sent there to be able to say, this is where your money is going. And I can't do that with Representative Horman's bill, or whether it's her bill or not. House Bill 93, I believe is what it was. And I can't do that. That money is taken out before it ever gets to the general fund. In fact, if you go back to 2020 when Governor Brad Little said, all right, agencies, all of you take a 3% cut. And they did. But if he was to say that now, it would not affect House Bill 93 because that money is gone before we ever get to see it. And so we have no purview of it. There is nothing to say where that money is going or how it is spent. So as a JFAC person, that really sits bad for me. I don't know if you want to call me a control freak, but as a member of the JFAC committee, I think that is my responsibility to do that.
So why do you think Governor Little was supportive of that? He asked for certain things. The bill, House Bill 93, was kind of reworked a little bit to support what Governor Little wanted. Where would you say he's supportive of legislators not being in control of that money?
I honestly don't know. And so I'm not going to pretend to put words in his mouth or I don't know. But for me, I needed to be able to see where that money goes. I need to be able to come back home to my district and say, yeah, this is where the money is going, how it's being spent. And I can't do that with that one. Like I said, you have money coming in from corporate taxes, income taxes. All that comes into this big old bucket of money. And then we start dishing that out into tax credits and House Bill 93. So that's all gone, and now we're down to a smaller bucket of money, and that's where the general fund, that's where JFAC begins to be able to distribute that money to agencies and roads and highways and schools and everything else. But that money is gone before we get to see it.
Would you agree that most legislators who did vote yes for this, and then Governor Little signed off on it, most of them said they are willing to give it a year, see how it all comes out, and then revisit? Do you think that was an honest take by legislators? Do you think there's a chance to rework this if you feel like it's maybe blooming out of control?
I would hope so. Yeah, that's what we're there for. We've even there's a lot of controversy on launch.
That's what I was going to say. The two are very similar in this fashion that you're talking about.
Launch has a built-in sunset, though. So in I think it was 5 years. In 5 years, we have to revisit that and say, okay, yeah, it was doing what we expected, or no, it's not, and let's change it. But the school choice bill, House Bill 93, there is no sunset built into that. It's ongoing. Now, does that mean we can't revisit it? Of course we can. We can revisit that as legislators and revamp it, kill it, improve it, whatever we want to do or whatever we think it needs to be done. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more about education. What some would call controversial, I don't think it is, but some would call controversial. A bill was passed that would prevent anything but like the American flag or the map of a country or whatever hanging in a classroom. And we've had some issues over in Boise with teachers, going against that. How did you land on that? And do you feel like that was healthy for education in Idaho?
I went back and forth on that bill, and I ended up voting against the bill. And yet I know what they were trying to do. But I felt like that should be a local issue. We nominate, we elect our school boards, we elect our city council and our mayor and our county commissioners. And for the state to come down and say something about a flag, it just didn't sit well with me. I thought, we are exercising our muscle a little bit too much. That needs to be down at the local level. And so I voted against it. There's some people who are really upset about why I did that, but that was my reason. I just really felt like that's a local thing, that local people should be able to do that. And why shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Anytime the state starts passing a law that covers the whole state, there's always exceptions where you're a loser, you're a winner. And boy, it's pretty tough to do that at a state level.
Yeah. My response to that, you asked the question, why shouldn't you? My response is, I believe that the people in your district, you can trust your elected school board trustees. You can believe in them that they are going to match or reflect what their parents of that school district are desiring for their kids. I think that some people found in other parts of the state that couldn't be accomplished. So that's why I think it's not a controversial bill. I think if all areas could trust their school board trustees, I think it wouldn't have been needed. I think that's why they were stepping in, is they felt like they couldn't trust what was being established in certain areas in the state.
And I agree with that. And we've certainly heard controversial in the news about, certain school districts and things. But that's when it comes down to you get them out. Yeah. We talk about term limits. That term limits is every time you go and vote, you get them out of there and get somebody you can trust.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay. Let's chat about some legislative wins. What did you feel good about the 2025 session?
Oh, well, one that we're working on right now, very active, is the Senate Joint Memorial 101 dealing with water. We haven't heard much about water in Southeast Idaho.
Not at all. There's people twitching, listening right now.
but this bill, the whole idea of this bill is to say, hey, state and federal agencies, let's update our studies. Let's get going. Let's figure out a way to get long-term water storage. This is not to stop what we're doing now with the recharge stations. Keep that going. That's a good thing. It's proven. It's working. But you're looking at an 8-cylinder car, you want all 8 cylinders firing. And I believe that the long-term water storage is one of those things that we really need to look at. And so in that memorial, it talks about several possibilities. And one of them was the rebuilding of the Teton Dam. Again, that is just a possibility. It also talks about raising existing dams like the Island Park, Minidoka, Jackson Lake, Galloway Lake, several other lakes about, hey, let's increase it. Let's see if we can get more water. It also talks about any other options. Are there more options out there where we could build new dams, new reservoirs, and control some of that water? And so that went out, that passed. And then right now we are working on to say, did it just pass for a talking point that sounds really good, or are we going to do something about it? And so we're trying to up that a little bit. I went back to Washington, D.C. A couple of weeks ago, had a chance to be within 3 rows of President Trump, which was pretty cool.
Congratulations.
That was
fun
awesome.
for you.
I was on the in the Rose Garden when he signed Take It Down Act. And so it was really cool. But while I was there, I went and met with all of our Idaho delegation and talked to them about Senate Joint Memorial 101, about that we need to get long-term water storage. And kind of the message that I heard is that sounds really good on paper, but is Idaho serious about it? And I says, well, I'll be back here in October, November, and I will deliver you thousands of names that says, yes, we are committed. We need to do that. And so we've started kind of a movement here, and you'll see this in the 4th of July activities across the state, at least in the southern eastern part of Idaho, where we will be signing out, getting petitions and getting signatures. And I would encourage you, if I may, if you go to my website, it's kevincookforidaho.com, you will find on this menu there, water. Click on water, and it'll tell you, here's the letter that we are going to deliver to our federal delegates, and here's where you can sign up as a supporter. Again, it's to increase long-term water storage and look at the studies and the options that are available. And so I was excited about that bill, and I'm excited about where we're going now, and we need to keep it going in that position.
I'm just going to beat the people texting into the punch here, because I know that they're going to send texts about this, which is we have a lot of listeners who would really appreciate the rebuilding of the Teton Dam. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 it's absolutely going to happen, 1 it's not. Where do you see that potential at?
Oh boy. I've out of that, I've had 3 people that have texted me or emailed me and were upset about it. Really upset.
Most people want it.
But it was interesting. One says it's going to cost too much money. It's geological. It's impossible. And I said, great. But what I'm asking for is to go do the study. Go do the study and find out, is it possible to build a safe dam that will back up the water and keep it there safely, that we don't have another accident like we did in 76? As far as rating it, I would think we're at a 7.
Oh, that's pretty optimistic.
I haven't heard a lot of people, but again, it's a study. Let's go find out. Yes, it's going to cost a lot of money, and yes, you're going to have some activists that are come out of the woodwork saying, no, you can't do that, environmental problems. But great, let's figure it out, and let's figure it out now. Let's not wait 20 years from now and then start the process. We need to start it now, because it is a 10 to 20-year process, whether it's the Teton Dam or anything else. But I've worked with the city of Rexburg, Mayor Merrill up there, and their city councilman. They are definitely for it. They see the need for drinking water as Rexburg continues to grow. They see it for agricultural. They see it for flood mitigation. That Teton River is always flooding. They see it for power generation. With the state of Idaho where we're at, we need more power. We need more power generation, and that's a cheap way to get that. So.
Yeah, you just listed 3 really strong wins for the building of it. We're going to produce power, stop flooding, and recharge the aquifer, be able to hold on to some of that water. So, yeah, both Neal and I would agree with you. We would like to see something at least looked at with that. What are some other things you're working on?
The other thing I'm working on is the education, the facility bill. I think I've talked to it before. It's a cookie cutter standardized cookie facility, that we get a building that we've really ironed it out and figured out how to do it the right way. We put the money in the classroom, not on the outside. We don't try and build this architectural showcase. We build a building that where our kids can get educated in, and we build it efficiently. And so we're looking at doing some stuff like that. We've met 2 or 3 times. There's a committee that was formed on it. I believe we can save millions of dollars if we were to be able to come up with a building. I think you'll see the public will have more confidence in it if they say, oh, yeah, you've worked it out. You've worked the bugs out. This looks good. Great. Let's do it. I think it'll be a good win for everybody.
Yeah, we interviewed school board trustee Paul Hackey, which is your district,
yes.
Last week. And man, they're that district that's in trouble. They need to do something with Idaho Falls High School, and they can't get a bond passed. So potentially, if something like this was put in place, maybe those who are voting for the bond would be more friendly towards it.
Well, it's more confident, but it's going to save millions of dollars. It will. They figure that for a high school, you got 11%. 10 to 11% of your cost is your planning, is your blueprints and all of that stuff. So if we can get that out of the way, that's going to save you and I as taxpayers some money.
Right.
And so I'm excited about it. We've got a long road to go on that and a lot of work, but I think we can get there.
You'll be bringing that back forward in the 2026 legislative session? I
hope we can have it ready by 2026. Okay. I'm not sure if we can get it done that quick, but we're trying.
All right. What else have you been working on?
The other one is the Medicaid bill that we passed. I think it was House Bill 345, I believe. We passed that one, and there's a lot of good stuff in that. We are looking at it now, and like, maybe that should have baked another year or so. There's some great things in there. One of the things that some of our doctors are really concerned about is the healthy connections. That's where our doctors are. You have a Medicaid person that is assigned. So if I qualified for Medicaid, I would be assigned a doctor. And part of that assignment is they would continue to call me and say, hey, I need to get you in. You need to come in. Also, they're opening up longer hours for weekends, longer night hours, earlier in the morning, telehealth. The whole idea is to keep them out of the emergency room. Because it costs you 10 times as much if I go to the emergency room. Well, that Healthy Connections ends January 1, 2026.
Okay.
And the new big all-encompassing Medicaid reform isn't going to happen for 3 or 4 more years. And that's where we get an MCO, a managed care organization, to come in and say, we will take over all of your Medicaid problems. And so they're a third party. They will work between the state and the provider and the patients, and they will come in the middle, and they will fund all of that
They'll
money.
be the hub.
Yeah. And so the idea is it's more, there's not so many hills and valleys, peaks and valleys on this. It's more straightforward is what we're hoping. But there's some things that I'm kind of worried about that we're trying to iron out to get ready for that.
So did I understand you correctly? There will be a gap there without the middleman and the one program going away, about a 3-year gap, you're saying?
Well, it's the Healthy Connections program. It's a separate program. So Medicaid will still be available for those who need it. The Healthy Connections is an idea to keep me out of the hospital, out of the emergency center. That piece goes away. And the big problem with that is we have 2 independent pediatrician clinics here in Idaho Falls. We have one big one in Pocatello. The one in Pocatello will lose about $800 million come January 1, 2026. So meeting with the doctors there, it says we will take a 20% cut in pay just like that. And so we've got a lot of doctors that are upset about it because their hours are going to be cut, their people are going to be cut back, and where are they going to go? Mm-hmm. I'm afraid they're going to go to the emergency center. So we got to figure that one out. We met 2 weeks ago. We know it's there. We know the problem. We got to figure out a resolution to it, and I don't know what that is yet. But I'm getting lots of emails from clinics and doctors. These are generally clinics that are not in a network. So they're not with the hospital or anything out there. They're independent. They're the ones that are biggest to lose.
They're going to take the biggest hit in all of this. Man, that opens up a ton of, because I've always worried about this conglomerate concept of one group owning multiple doctors' offices. And we're seeing a lot of that in East Idaho, a lot of that. It was made very evident when Mountain View Hospital in Idaho Falls had the data breach, the malware that came in. That took not just the hospital offline, but multiple clinics throughout the area because they're all connected to one major player. And if we're going to continue to just reward the major players in all of this and the independents are going to take the biggest hit, I fear that that's not healthy for East Idaho.
I agree. You need to have the independents there, and this Healthy Connections is going to hit the independents big time. And like I said, we got to figure it out.
Okay.
And I hope we can. But it's a good bill. But I think I would have wished we could have let it bake for another year and really listen.
Could you
to
have
it.
kept Healthy Connections on board and delayed everything by a year?
Yes, we could. And that might be the answer, but we're not in session.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be dropped January 1, 2026. So we're looking at it. Medicaid people at the state level, the Department of Health and Welfare, they're looking at it, trying to figure out what we can do. So,
since we're talking about Medicaid, are you supportive of the restrictions of like soda and things on the SNAP benefits? We were talking about Medicaid, but social services programs. Are you supportive of making it impossible for them to purchase those items?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't drink soda, and I still happy.
I try not to anymore. I was heavily addicted to Diet Dr. Pepper for the longest time.
Now I'm getting my soda people are going to be mad at me, but you know what? I think we need to be healthier. But that's your decision. That's my decision. But should we be supporting somebody else's unhealthy stuff with
government funds?
Yeah, and so I'm okay there.
Yeah, you'd be all right with that.
Yeah, as some of the other ones, restrictions that we put in that for that same bill was, if you're a healthy, able, working adult, go get a job. Mm-hmm. Spend 20 hours and get a job, or go do volunteer service, or go get an education. Don't just sit there and suck up on Medicaid. And I think the biggest majority of them are not. I think the biggest majority of our Medicaid people, we are trying to get them through the valleys and get them back on their feet. But there are some that take advantage of it and give it a bad name, and those are the ones we want, like, hey,
just tighten it up a little bit.
Get off of it.
Yeah.
I always, in JFAC, I always talk about we hand out fish too often instead of the fishing pole. Let's give them the fishing pole, teach them how to fish so they can survive on their own.
Totally. Okay. Anything else you wanted to touch on before I cut you loose and send you back to work? You've got to go to work today.
No. I think things look good. I'm excited.
Good for you. Okay. Well, Senator Cook, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And I know you made a special exception to be here. So a special thanks from me for taking some time out of your day and being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. We've got to take a quick break here on News Talk 107.9. It is the Neal Larson Show. And we're back on News Talk 107.9. I'm Julie Mason, and we swapped out one lawmaker for another lawmaker. Good morning, Representative Barbie Hart. How are you?
Julie, I'm just doing fantastic. Thanks for having me in. I listened to you and Senator Cook, and that was just fun. So glad to be here.
It was great. Thank you. And yep. I feel like I'm abusing you a little bit. I asked you to come back after you gave so generously of your time last week. But with this kind of controversy, I couldn't miss the chance of you weighing in on the Simone Biles, Riley Gaines controversy.
No, I appreciate it. And hey, I live just across the way, and this is fun.
Well, good deal. Let me give everybody who might not know what happened over the weekend with Simone Biles and Riley Gaines, just give you a little brief overview. This spat between the two started because of a Minnesota trans high school softball pitcher whose shutout performance in the state finals Thursday helped his team, I should say, win the state championship. We had mentioned this softball pitcher when you and I were talking last week, but the championship game hadn't happened. This trans athlete pitched a shutout performance, secured the championship, and Riley Gaines took offense to that. She did not feel like this was a situation that should be supported. Well, Simone Biles didn't appreciate that. And here's what she tweeted. She said, "You're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race." And then she went on to say, "Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports." And then they went back and forth. She finally tweeted, "Bully someone your own size," which would ironically be a male. So she's telling somebody to, quit being a bully, but then I'm going to bully you and say you look like a man. When Riley Gaines, you stood next to her. She's 5'5".
Riley is a small person. And I'm sorry, Simone. Most people think Riley's gorgeous. So, basically this is a sore loser. This is somebody, meaning in Simone Biles, that stepped where she shouldn't have stepped. She's been attacked and attacked hard because, again, this is an 80-20 issue. And again, I'd say it's probably more of a 90-10. And basically reaching out to, now kind of late, but the trans community for support, it's just not there. I mean, as far as the rest of it. The irony of all this, number of things. First, if Simone had to compete against a man, she's barely 5 foot herself, even if she had been taller, it wouldn't have happened. She would have been annihilated. Simone has had the advantage of playing against or competing against women. And Simone, one of their biggest complaints against Larry Nassar, who had been their physician, had to do essentially with private spaces. Whether it's in the physical, whatever, it's their own private spaces. And we forget that part of this entire movement, part of the entire argument of Riley Gaines, it's not just about the competition. She never claimed to do anything but tie with Leah Thomas for 5th place. It was Leah invading the private spaces. It was the fact that they had to compete against a man at all, and that this insanity continues, and that we have girls in junior high having to take stands on their own because the adults can't figure this out. And we have, young girls now taking stands on their own. Or we have the example that you had just given of the softball. How many innings did he pitch a shutout? And this is, a pitcher. I don't know if people realize in both baseball and softball, a pitcher controls the game. The other thing I don't like about the fact of a guy playing in softball is the mound between home plate and the pitching mound is so much closer, even than baseball. And the ability to react to a line drive hit directly back out at the pitcher is incredibly difficult. I watched my brother, who was Idaho's Gatorade Player of the Year, highly recruited as a pitcher, and after having let a pitch go, get nailed in the head and knocked out. And we were pretty concerned about him because of the reaction time, and there's even less reaction time in softball. It's just insane, basically. And I think you were, maybe expand on what J.K. Rowling had said, because that's exactly what Simone has done.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling put out a tweet, and this isn't verbatim, but basically she said Megan Rapinoe and Simone Biles climbed the ladder and then pulled the ladder up and away so no one else could climb it. They got their success, and once they were done with their success, they either pulled the ladder away, kicked the ladder away so nobody else can have the same success that they have. And that's just disgusting when it comes to supporting women. I just don't appreciate it. I thought it was a great tweet by J.K. Rowling. I'm sure lots of people know I do a crime podcast. Last year, I covered the Larry Nassar fallout. I did a deep dive on this, I played audio from Simone Biles crying in her testimony.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is such a 180. Here she is crying because their intimate spaces were violated. And all of a sudden it's okay now?
Exactly.
That someone can violate other women's intimate spaces?
Yeah. As though the intimate space is different if there's a doctor there. Mm-hmm. But it's okay to go into the bathrooms and the locker rooms and completely undress in front of all the women to watch them, make them watch him. I mean, it's just absurd. So, I tried to stick up for Simone even when she pulled out in the Olympics. And not sure what that was about. Simone could have had somebody else out there competing. Try to do a good job of these things because I understand how difficult it is in athletics and try to give some grace there. But there's no grace right here. This is terribly disappointing. And you know what else it tells me? It tells me that these young athletes completely they lack a complete history and understanding of Title IX and what happened with. And I'm sorry, I'll obviously, I feel like I'm in that category. Title IX changed my life. You've heard me say that before.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't one of the early pioneers. I'm not quite that old, but I benefited. And also when I played high school and collegiately and then coached, we are at a great disadvantage compared to our male counterparts. Never complained. We just, powered forward and kept trying to make it better for those who would follow. A heck of a lot of sacrifices and a heck of a lot of work has gone into what happened from 1972 until now. And people like Simone just walk all over it. She needs to take a lesson in the historical, just basically the history of Title IX.
Yes, she does. You mentioned, I wanted to make sure I had this pulled up. You mentioned that she quit in the Olympics.
She did?
Yeah, claiming mental health issues, whatever. I had zero judgment for that.
At the time.
At
Me
the
too.
time. But Babylon Bee, that's the satirical website.
Yeah.
They put out a headline over the weekend that said, Simone Biles calls for all female athletes to just give up like she did.
I love it.
Yeah, there it is.
I love it.
All right. We have to take a quick bottom of the hour news break, and we'll be back on News Talk 1079. And we're back on News Talk 1079. I need to take a moment and talk about Grand Peaks Prime Meats. What a great place to go and visit and get any of your protein needs. They've got beef, they've got pork, they've got chicken, they've got everything. They got sous vide meals like their amazing French dip, or one of the favorites of this studio is the fajitas because it's so easy. Already cooked, already seasoned. You just pop open that bag, throw it in a pan, warm it up for about 15 minutes, gives you just enough time to grill up those corn tortillas, and then you have some amazing fajitas. Always recommended cut up a couple of guacamoles on there, or avocados, I mean. Put that on there. Oh, so good. gpprimemeats.com. That's Grand Peaks. So gpprimemeats.com. Delivery is free in the Idaho Falls area. And if you live outside of Idaho Falls, it's just a small surcharge, so it couldn't be easier. Make sure you tell them that Neal and Julie sent you. All right, we're back in studio with Representative Barb Ehart. Tell us, Representative, you and Kevin Cook both received some recognition for some of the legislation that you have worked on. So give us that rundown.
Well, I had been working on campus free speech for about 5 years, and just couldn't quite get it to over the top. And essentially, and I might have mentioned this before, but essentially, it's this idea that if you're a college student or a professor or anybody, that you don't check your First Amendment free speech rights at the corner of the campus community. And, so many of our campuses, just like what you see across the states, they like to create speech zones and speech codes, and you can only say this, you can't say that. Or if you're right-wing Christian, Republican, conservative, you have to go to the North 40 in order to, do whatever you're doing. If we don't like who you want to bring into the campus, and instead of charging the, $5,000 security fee, we're going to charge $50,000, in security fees. And so we eliminated all of that. And I had asked Senator Cook if he would be willing to carry it on the Senate side. He was going to do a couple of years ago. And so he's willing to do that. And yes, so we've received a number of awards of recognition for that particular piece of legislation, which I think is great. Last week I was with Idaho State. It was the chamber meeting, and a few of us we were invited to sit with Idaho State. And of course, that's my alma mater. And even President Wagner, gave me a shout out on that piece of legislation. So very supportive of it.
Yeah. So that's great that you guys are working towards that. You've got other stuff in the works that we didn't get a chance to talk about when we were in studio last week. What else did you want to chat about, or any of the news headlines, whatever you'd like to chat about?
Well, maybe one of the things that I could just throw out here that we could maybe look into as we go. Last night I was up a little bit late, kind of walking.
Very on brand for you.
Very on brand. As I was getting ready to go to bed, I was walking my block and noticed Trident Security had pulled up across the street. So I live, over there by Civitan Park. And he was checking that shelter because we oftentimes will have homeless who will come and hang out there. And I was just thanking him and having a conversation and asking about some of the shelter places. We've noticed some of the homeless popping up. And, you know, our Park and Rec has the city's contracted a Trident to help them with this. And I'm very appreciative. I had asked about a couple of places which I knew and where actual, almost like a home had been being developed out there, you know, back in the brush out by Freeman Park. There's another one in the embankment where they dug in and, you know, they had like a whole sofa and everything. The problem is it's setting up over there by the Idaho Falls Public Library, and somehow the Idaho Falls Public Library thinks that this is free speech, that they should be allowed to do this. I am not happy about this at all, and it's something that I'm going to be looking into. That has nothing to do with free speech. People are often conflating free speech. It's just like the flag legislation. Oh, that's free speech. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. We're talking about flags on government property. That doesn't hinder your free speech. You can still come and
you can hang them at your house. You can put them in your garage, wherever you want to. But public funds changes the conversation.
It absolutely does, and it's the same thing. There's no free speech issue by allowing the homeless on city property of all places, public library property, to start setting up. I think we need to call for this to stop, bring awareness to it. And anyway, so that was one thing, Julie, if you don't mind, I wanted to point out.
Look, I'm going to back you up on this. I committed several years ago to take advantage of the Greenbelt more often. It is beautiful.
Yes.
We have people who travel here just to see the Greenbelt.
Yes.
And I stay in my house and I don't utilize it. So I will walk a 6 mile or a 4.5 mile, however I have figured it out through the downtown area. And there is a portion that I had to cut out of my walking paths because the homeless are set up there. Yep. I'm not going to walk it. I've been cornered by men before. I'm going to lose that battle. I'm 5'3". I don't weigh enough to even push somebody over. So It's not going to happen for me. So I'm with you in this battle.
Yes, no, thank you. And kudos to the city for hiring the extra help necessary to make sure that we take care of that. But you don't kick them out of one place and let them set up in another. Right now, we have homeless shelters and we have means that we could handle because they're not full. Some of those who don't have a place to live, just like in Boise, you know, with the law that we passed, the no camping law. Our shelters aren't full, but they don't want to abide by those rules. So there's a place for them to go.
I appreciate that. Real quick, about 20 seconds. Is there something you can do on the state level to change this?
Well, we may have to enhance this past year's law, but we'll see how it starts working when it goes into effect July 1st. All
right, we got to take a quick commercial break here on News Talk 1079. And we're back on News Talk 1079.
News Talk 1079.
Yeah, Jeff Roper from QP and Local News 8 is joining us.
Hey,
you literally have 50 seconds. Take the floor, Jeff Roper.
Well, I'm so glad to see you have some powerful people in here. Normally it's Neal. So Barbara Ehart is in here, our representative. Barbara, everybody wants to know, are you considering running for mayor?
Oh, wow. He just throws it out there, Barb.
Hannah, I'll tell you what. That one caught me off guard. You know, I let's just say we haven't ruled it out yet, but I really enjoy my place in the legislature. I feel like I've been able to make a big difference there.
Okay, that's it. That's all you guys got.
That's all we got?
That's all you got.
Okay, listen to QP99
all right.
Watch Local News 8.
All right, Jeff Roper, Neal. Representative Ehart. Thanks for being here.
Seriously.